elderly woman raised her grandkids alone, and what they did at the hospital broke her heart. Mrs. Margaret Wilson woke up that Tuesday morning with a pain in her chest she couldn't explain. At 70 years old, she was used to the little discomforts of age, but this was different. Nurse Ashley had just left the room when she noticed the three boys holding hands in the hospital hallway, whispering something she couldn't understand. Ethan, Mason, and Noah had faces far too serious for boys their age. "Grandma, are you feeling better today?" asked Ethan, the oldest at 12, carefully approaching the bed. "I am, sweetheart, but what are you doing here so early? Hasn't school started yet?" The three exchanged a strange look. Mason, 10 years old, shuffled his feet without answering. Noah, the youngest at 8, bit his lip like he always did when he was nervous. "We came to see you before school," Mason said, but his voice came out quiet and unconvincing. Mrs. Wilson knew those boys better than they realized. For 5 years they had been her responsibility, ever since her son Robert and daughter-in-law Jennifer left for Canada, promising to return in 6 months. 6 months that turned into years without a single call, without a penny of help. "Boys, come here." She motioned for them to come closer. "What are you hiding from Grandma?" That's when Nurse Ashley returned to the room carrying a tray of medicine. Her face looked different, as if she'd seen something that troubled her. "Mrs. Wilson, I need to talk to you," Ashley said, giving the children a meaningful look. "It's about how the treatment is being paid for." The elderly woman's heart raced. She knew the costs were high, but she was sure her small pension and the savings she'd set aside over the years would cover at least the basics. "You can speak in front of them, Ashley. They're my family." The nurse hesitated, then pulled a chair to sit beside the bed. "Ma'am, I was checking the payments at reception and, well, I found out something you might not know." Ethan took a step back, pulling his brothers with him. Mrs. Wilson noticed the movement and felt her stomach tighten. "For the last 3 months, extra money has been deposited to cover your medicine and tests. Cash, always in small bills, delivered by..." Ashley glanced at the boys before continuing. "Delivered by 3 kids who match the description of these boys right here." The silence in the room was broken only by the sound of medical equipment. Mrs. Wilson felt tears welling in her eyes as she looked at her 3 grandsons. "Ethan," her voice came out weaker than she intended. "Tell me what's going on." The 12-year-old swallowed hard. His blue eyes, so much like his father's, were filled with a determination beyond his years. "Grandma, we just wanted to help." "Help how, sweetheart?" It was Mason who answered, speaking quickly as if to get the weight off his chest. "We've been selling candy on the street, Grandma, every day after school, and on weekends too. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story." Mrs. Wilson tried to sit up, but weakness held her down. Tears now streamed freely down her face as she reached out to the boys. My boys, you didn't have to do this." Noah, who had been quiet until then, rushed to the bedside and held his grandmother's hand. "But we wanted to, Grandma. You did everything for us when Dad and Mom left. Now it's our turn to take care of you." Nurse Ashley discreetly wiped her own eyes as she watched the scene. In 20 years on the job, she'd seen many touching stories, but this one was affecting her in a special way. "How did you get the money for the sweets, Mrs. Margaret Wilson asked, still trying to process the information. "We saved from our school lunches," Ethan explained, "and we asked Mrs. Nancy, the neighbor with that big stove, for help. She taught us how to make chocolate truffles, coconut fudge, and peanut candy." "Have you been eating properly?" The silence that followed was more telling than any answer. Mason looked at the floor while Noah squeezed his grandma's hand tighter. "Boys," Mrs. Wilson's voice came out firm despite her tears. "Answer me, have you been eating properly?" "We eat, Grandma," Ethan said quickly. "We share our school lunches and what else? And sometimes Mrs. Nancy gives us a plate of food." Mrs. Wilson closed her eyes, feeling a mix of pride and despair filling her chest. How had she not noticed? How had she let these boys go without while she was unaware? "How long have you been doing this?" 3 months, Mason admitted. Ever since you fainted at home and had to come to the hospital. And here I thought you were playing outside with friends after school. Nurse Ashley stood up, sensing the family needed a moment alone. Mrs. Wilson, I'll let you talk. But first, I need to say something. She turned to the boys. You're the bravest kids I've ever met in my life. After Ashley left, Mrs. Wilson motioned for the three to come closer to the bed. Come here, my loves. Come to Grandma. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed while Mason and Noah settled into the chairs beside it. It was the first time in months they were all together without rushing, without one of them needing to run off somewhere. Tell Grandma how this all started. Ethan took a deep breath before beginning. Remember that day you fainted in the kitchen? We got really scared. Mr. Frank, the neighbor, called the ambulance and brought you to the hospital. I remember, yes. When we got back home, we heard Mr. Frank talking to Mrs. Nancy about how expensive the hospital was, how the medicine cost a lot of money. We got worried. Mason continued the story. Then we started asking people how we could make money. Mrs. Nancy said kids couldn't work, but they could learn to make sweets and sell them. At first we didn't know anything, Noah said, growing animated as he told it. We burned everything. Mrs. Nancy got mad, but then she taught us right. And how did you sell them? We'd go to the church square after school, Ethan explained, and on weekends to the farmer's market. People liked them because the sweets were homemade. Mrs. Wilson shook her head, still taking it all in. Her grandsons, ages 8, 10, and 12, had organized themselves to support her hospital treatment. It was a responsibility even adults shouldn't have to carry alone. And school, how did you keep up your grades? We studied at night, Mason said, after making sweets for the next day. Sometimes it was hard, but we helped each other. Noah's the smartest at math, Ethan added proudly. He'd calculate how much we needed to sell to cover the hospital bills. Mrs. Wilson looked at her youngest grandson, who smiled shyly. I learned to count money. Mrs. Nancy taught me. And you never thought to tell me? The three exchanged glances before Ethan answered. We thought about it, Grandma. But you were already worried enough. We wanted you to get better without stressing about money. Besides, said Mason, we're family. Family helps each other, right? You always said that. Tears welled up in Mrs. Margaret Wilson's eyes again. Those boys had learned values many adults never understood. They'd given up their own childhood to take care of her. My boys, you make me so proud, but you're children. You shouldn't have this responsibility. But we like doing it, Grandma, said Noah. And the sweets turn out delicious. People always buy everything. Do you keep any money for yourselves? Silence fell over the room again. Mrs. Wilson already knew the answer before they even said anything. We don't need anything, Grandma, Ethan finally said. There's food at home, clothes. The only thing we want is for you to get better. And when I get better and leave the hospital, will you stop selling sweets? We don't know, Mason admitted. Maybe we'll keep selling a little, just to help at home. Mrs. Wilson closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about everything she'd heard. When she opened them again, she looked straight at each of her grandsons. I'll make a deal with you. You can keep making the sweets, but on one condition. From now on, part of the money has to be saved for you to buy whatever you want to have fun. But Grandma, no buts, Ethan. You've already proven you're responsible. Now you need to learn that you also deserve to have fun and enjoy good things. Noah jumped from his chair and hugged his grandmother. Can we still visit you every day? Of course you can, my love. You're the best medicine there is. It was at that moment the door opened, and a woman Mrs. Wilson didn't know walked in. She was well dressed and carried herself with authority. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Sarah Johnson. I'm a social worker at the hospital. I need to talk to you about a matter that's come to our attention. Mrs. Wilson's heart raced again. That official tone didn't sound good. Go ahead, doctor. We received an anonymous report about 3 children allegedly working on the streets without proper supervision, children matching these boys' description. The 3 grandsons instinctively moved closer to their grandmother's bed, as if seeking protection. Doctor, I just found out about the situation. They were trying to help me with medical expenses. I understand, Mrs. Wilson. But I need to assess whether these children are receiving proper care. It's standard hospital procedure. What kind of assessment? I'll ask them and you a few questions. Depending on the answers, closer follow-up with the family may be necessary. Mrs. Wilson felt the world spin. The thought that they might separate her from her grandsons because of this was terrifying. "Doctor, please don't separate us," Ethan said, stepping forward. "Grandma takes good care of us. She always has." "No one's talking about separation yet, young man, but I need to understand how your household works." The social worker pulled a clipboard from her bag and began taking notes. "Mrs. Wilson, do you receive any pension or benefits for the boys?" "No, doctor. They're my grandsons, not adopted children. Their father is in Canada, working there." "And when was the last time he made contact?" Mrs. Wilson hesitated. The truth was, Robert hadn't been in touch for over a year. "It's been a while. They're working hard over there, you know how it is." Dr. Johnson wrote something on her clipboard, making everyone in the room even more nervous. "And you boys, when did you last speak to your parents?" The three exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "It's been a long time," Mason admitted. "They're busy." "Do you think it's normal for kids your age to get some kind of help from their parents, even if they live far away?" "We don't need anything," Noah said quickly. "Grandma gives us everything we need." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot since we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Dr. Sarah kept asking questions about the boys' routine, their school, and the conditions of the house they lived in. With each answer, Mrs. Margaret Wilson felt like she was being judged, as if her ability to care for her grandsons was being questioned. "Do you have enough clothes? Do you eat 3 meals a day? Do you do your schoolwork?" "We have everything, Mom," Ethan answered. "Grandma has always taken good care of us." "And this business with selling sweets on the street? Whose idea was that?" "It was ours," Mason said quickly. "Grandma didn't even know." "And do you think it's normal for kids your age to take on that kind of responsibility?" Ethan looked straight at the social worker. "Do you have family, doctor?" "Yes, I do." "Then you know that when someone in the family needs help, everyone helps, no matter how old they are." The 12-year-old's answer clearly impressed Dr. Sarah. She stopped writing for a moment and studied the 3 boys more closely. "Do you feel like you've missed out on anything in your childhood because of this responsibility?" "We haven't missed anything," Noah said. "We still play, still go to school, still watch cartoons. We just help Grandma too." "And do you feel forced to do this?" "Did someone tell you to?" "Nobody told us anything," Mason replied. "We wanted to do it because we love Grandma." Dr. Sarah made a few more notes before putting away her clipboard. "All right, I'll speak with their teachers at school to better understand their academic progress, and I'll also visit the house to assess their living conditions." "When?" Mrs. Wilson asked, trying to hide the anxiety in her voice. "Probably tomorrow or the day after. You'll be notified beforehand." After the social worker left, the room fell silent. The 3 boys were visibly worried, while Mrs. Wilson tried to process everything that had happened. "Grandma, can they take us away from you?" Noah asked, his eyes filled with tears. "No, sweetheart, that won't happen. Grandma won't let it." But inside, Mrs. Wilson was terrified. She knew their financial situation was shaky, that their house was too simple, that 3 kids working on the street could be seen as neglect on her part. "Did we do something wrong, Grandma?" Mason asked. "No, my dear, you did what you thought was right. The problem is, sometimes people don't understand certain situations." Ethan walked over to the bed and held his grandmother's hand. "We'll stay together, right, Grandma? No matter what?" "Of course, my love. We're a family, and families don't get separated." That night, after the boys had left, Mrs. Wilson lay awake, thinking about everything. How had it come to this? How had 3 children taken on responsibilities that should have been hers? Nurse Ashley came in for the 10 p.m. medication and noticed her patient was still awake. "Can't sleep, Mrs. Wilson." "I'm worried, Ashley. What if they take my boys away?" "From what I saw today, those boys love you very much, and it's clear you love them too. That counts for a lot in these evaluations." "But our financial situation isn't the best." Money isn't everything, Mrs. Wilson. Love, care, education, that's what matters. And those boys have all of that. You really think so? I'm sure of it. In 20 years working here, I've seen it all. I've seen rich kids who didn't have a drop of love at home, and I've seen poor kids who were happier than any adult. Your grandchildren are the second kind. The nurse's words brought Mrs. Margaret Wilson some relief, but she knew she still had to face the social worker's visit and all the implications it might bring. The next day, the boys arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. They carried bags in their hands and wore determined expressions. "What did you bring there?" Mrs. Wilson asked. "We made chocolate truffles for the nurses," said Ethan. "And for that social worker doctor too." "Why?" "Because we want them to see we can do good things," Mason explained, "that we're not just kids who work on the street." Noah opened one of the bags and showed perfectly rolled chocolate truffles, neatly arranged in colorful cups. "Mrs. Nancy helped us make them really nice this morning. But didn't you go to school?" "We'll go later, Grandma. Today it's important that people see we're a real family." Mrs. Wilson's heart tightened. How had children so young developed such a clear understanding of the situation? How did they know exactly what to do to protect their family? "You're amazing. You know that?" "We learned from you, Grandma," Ethan said simply. When Nurse Ashley passed by the room, the boys rushed to offer the chocolate truffles. "What a lovely surprise," she said, taking a bite. "It's delicious. Did you make these?" "We made them for all the nurses," Noah said proudly. "And for the doctor who came yesterday too." "How thoughtful. I'm sure everyone will be very happy." Throughout the morning, the three moved around the hospital, handing out chocolate truffles to the entire staff. Mrs. Wilson watched from her bed, seeing how her grandchildren won over everyone they spoke to. It wasn't just the quality of the sweets that impressed people. It was their manners, the respectful way they addressed adults, the genuine joy they showed in doing something good for others. Around noon, Dr. Sarah Johnson appeared in the room again. This time, her expression was softer. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to ask a few follow-up questions." "Doctor!" Noah ran to her with a small bag. "We made chocolate truffles for you." The social worker was visibly surprised by the gesture. "For me? How kind." "Try one, Doctor," Mason encouraged. "We made them with lots of care." Dr. Johnson took a bite and couldn't hide her delight. "It's really delicious. You have a talent for this." "Mrs. Nancy, our neighbor, taught us," Ethan explained. "She's really good in the kitchen." "And do you plan to keep making sweets?" "We like making them," Noah said, "and people like buying them. But now we're saving some money for ourselves too," Mason added. "Grandma said it's important." Dr. Johnson sat down and reopened her clipboard. "I spoke with your teachers at school this morning." Mrs. Wilson's heart raced. This was the moment of truth. "All your teachers spoke very highly of you. They said you're dedicated, respectful students who help your classmates and never cause trouble." "We like studying," Ethan said. "They also mentioned that sometimes you come to school a little tired, but you always do your homework and participate in class." "It's because we stay up late making sweets," Mason admitted. "And that doesn't affect your schoolwork?" "We help each other," Noah explained. "When one of us doesn't understand something, the others explain." Dr. Johnson made a few notes before continuing. "I also spoke with some of your neighbors. Everyone had wonderful things to say about Mrs. Wilson and how well she takes care of you." "Grandma is the best grandma in the world," said Noah with conviction. "And what do you think about the idea of continuing to live with her?" "We want to live with Grandma forever," Ethan answered quickly. "Even if other options came up, people with more financial resources, bigger houses." "It doesn't matter," Mason said firmly. "We're a family. Families don't split up." The social worker closed her clipboard and looked directly at Mrs. Margaret Wilson. "Mrs. Wilson, I'll be honest with you. Your situation is delicate from a legal standpoint. 3 children working on the streets, even if it's to help the family, technically counts as child labor." Mrs. Wilson's blood ran cold. "However," Dr. Sarah Johnson continued, "after evaluating the whole situation, speaking with the school, the neighbors, and observing your relationship, my recommendation will be for the family to stay together." "What do you mean?" asked Mrs. Wilson, hardly believing what she was hearing. I'll recommend periodic social follow-ups and for the children to stop selling sweets on the streets, but they'll remain under your care. What if we want to keep making sweets? Ethan asked. You can keep making them, but at home, for friends and neighbors. No more selling on the streets. We can accept that, Mason said, looking at his brothers. But there's one important condition, Dr. Johnson added. You need to go back to being kids. Play more, worry less about adult responsibilities. What if Grandma needs help? Noah asked. Grandma will get help from other places. I've already spoken with the hospital's social services about assistance you can receive. Mrs. Wilson felt tears welling up in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief. Thank you so much, Doctor. Don't thank me. I'm just doing my job, and my job is to make sure families who love each other stay together. After Dr. Johnson left, the four of them hugged in a moment of pure emotion. The threat of separation had passed, but the experience had brought them even closer. Grandma, can we still visit you every day? Noah asked. Of course you can, sweetheart. But now I want you to enjoy being kids too. Play with your friends, watch TV, do kid things. Can we still make sweets sometimes? Mason asked. Yes, you can, but as a hobby for fun, not as an obligation. Ethan, who had been the leader of the whole operation, walked over to his grandmother's bed. Grandma, we just wanted you to get better. And I am getting better, my dear. You're the best medicine I could have. We learned something important, Mason said thoughtfully. What's that, sweetheart? That this is what family is. Taking care of each other no matter what. Exactly, Mrs. Wilson smiled. And you've proven you're the best family anyone could ask for. In the days that followed, as Mrs. Wilson recovered in the hospital, the boys' routine changed completely. They still visited their grandmother every day, but now they also had time to play, do homework without rushing, and just be kids. Their neighbor, Mrs. Nancy, who had helped with the sweets all those months, came to the hospital with news from their street. Margaret, you have no idea how proud I am of these boys, she said, settling into the visitor's chair. They really are special, Nancy. You know, all that time they were making sweets, I'd watch them. I've never seen kids so dedicated, so careful with their work. And how are they now? They're doing well. They still make chocolate truffles sometimes, but now they just sell them to neighbors. And you know what they do with the money? What? They save half in a little can for when you get out of the hospital, and the other half they spend on silly kid stuff, bubble gum, trading cards, things like that. Mrs. Margaret Wilson smiled. It was exactly what she wanted to hear. And how's the house? It's well kept. They take turns cleaning, but nothing too extreme. And I keep an eye on things too, of course. Thank you so much for everything, Nancy. I don't know how I'll ever repay all your help. No need to repay anything, dear. Neighbors are family too. A week later, the doctor delivered the news everyone had been waiting for. Mrs. Margaret would be discharged in a few days. Her condition had stabilized, and she could continue treatment at home. When the boys found out, it was a full-blown celebration. Noah ran to the hospital and jumped onto his grandma's bed to hug her. Grandma, Mrs. Ashley said you're going home. It's true, sweetheart. Finally, we'll all be together again. We've already got everything ready at home, Ethan said proudly. It's all clean and tidy for you. And we made a welcome sign, Mason added. A sign? It's a surprise, Noah laughed. You'll only see it when you get home. During the discharge preparations, Nurse Ashley stopped by the room to say goodbye. Mrs. Margaret, it's been a pleasure taking care of you and getting to know these wonderful boys. Thank you so much for everything, Ashley. You've all taken such good care of us. And you, boys, Ashley turned to the three of them. Keep being the special kids you are. But remember, now it's time to just be kids, okay? We'll remember, Ethan promised. And if you need anything, you know where to find me. On the day of the discharge, a small crowd was waiting at the hospital door. Besides the three grandsons, there were Mrs. Nancy, Mr. Frank, the neighbor who had called the ambulance, Dr. Sarah, and even some nurses who had grown fond of the family. Look at this welcome party, Mrs. Margaret exclaimed, moved. You're so loved, Grandma, Noah said, holding her hand. The ride home was a celebration. Neighbors waved from their windows, kids ran alongside the car, everyone showing their affection for the family. When they reached their street, Mrs. Margaret saw the sign the boys had made. It was stretched between two trees in front of the house. "Welcome home, Grandma. Love, Ethan, Mason, and Noah." "Boys," she could barely speak from emotion. "We made it with leftover wrapping paper from last Christmas," Mason explained. "And Mrs. Nancy lent us the paints," Noah added. Inside, everything was impeccably organized. The simple three-bedroom house had never felt so welcoming. There were flowers in makeshift vases, the furniture gleamed from cleaning, and a delicious smell came from the kitchen. "Did you cook?" "Mrs. Nancy helped us make your favorite," Ethan said. "Roast chicken with sweet potatoes." "And for dessert, there's pudding," Noah announced excitedly. Mrs. Margaret sat in the living room armchair and looked around. It was a simple house, no luxuries, but full of love. On the walls were drawings the boys had made for her while she was in the hospital, family photos from happy moments, and on the kitchen table, a little can with a note taped to it that read, "For emergencies." "What's that little can over there?" "It's our savings," Mason explained. "We decided we'll always save some money in case of emergencies. And you came up with this on your own?" "Dr. Sarah gave us the idea," Ethan said. "She told us every family should have an emergency fund." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. That night, after dinner, the four of them sat in the living room to talk. It was the first time in months they were all together at home, unhurried, without pressing worries. "Grandma, can we ask you something?" said Noah. "Of course, my love." "Why don't Mom and Dad call anymore?" It was the question Mrs. Margaret Wilson had been dreading. How could she explain to three children that their parents had in practice abandoned them? "Look, my darlings, sometimes adults make choices that are hard to understand." "But they promised they'd come back," said Mason. "And they promised they'd call every week," added Ethan. Mrs. Wilson took a deep breath. The time had come to be honest with them. "Boys, I'm going to tell you the truth because you've already shown you're mature enough to understand certain things." The three moved closer, giving her their full attention. "Your father and mother went to Canada to look for a better life. That's true. But from what it seems, they ended up building a new life there and forgot about the responsibilities they had here." "They forgot about us?" asked Noah, his eyes brimming with tears. "They didn't forget you as people, my love, but they forgot the responsibility of taking care of you." "Will they ever come back?" Mason wanted to know. "I don't know, my dear. Maybe yes, maybe no, but what I do know is that you have all the love you need here with me." Ethan, always the practical one, asked the question on everyone's mind. "What if they do come back? Will we have to go with them?" "If they come back, we'll talk. But no one will force you to do anything. You're old enough to have a say in where you want to live." "We want to live here with you," Noah said without hesitation. "Forever," Mason agreed. "This is our home," Ethan finished. "This is where we're happy." Mrs. Wilson hugged her three grandsons, feeling a peace she hadn't known in a long time. No matter what the future held, they'd face it together. In the weeks that followed, the family settled into a new routine. Mrs. Wilson, still recovering, stayed home handling lighter chores. The boys returned to a normal childhood schedule: school in the morning, homework in the afternoon, and free time to play. On weekends, they still made sweets to sell to the neighbors, but now it was a fun activity, not a desperate obligation. And most importantly, each kept part of the money for themselves. A month after her discharge, Dr. Sarah Johnson made her first follow-up visit. She found a transformed family, balanced, happy, functioning as it should. "How are things here?" she asked, glancing around the clean and organized living room. "Everything's fine, Doctor," Mrs. Wilson replied. "The boys are being kids again." "And you boys, how do you feel?" "We're happy," said Noah. "We still help Grandma, but now we play a lot too." "And how's school?" "It's good," Ethan answered. "We even have time for gym class now." "And the sweets?" "We still make them," Mason said, "but only on Saturday mornings. And we sell them to the neighbors, like before." Dr. Johnson made a few notes and closed her clipboard. "Very well. I'm very pleased with what I see. You've found a healthy balance." "Will you keep visiting us?" Mrs. Wilson asked. I'll stop by 2 or 3 more times in the coming months just to check in, but from what I can tell, you're on the right path. After Dr. Johnson left, the boys ran to the backyard to play. Mrs. Wilson stood at the window watching them, thinking about how life could take unexpected turns. A few months ago, she'd been desperate in the hospital, with no idea how her grandsons were sacrificing themselves for her. Now she saw 3 happy children, playing as they should, but who had learned life lessons many adults never do. That night, after the boys had gone to bed, Mrs. Margaret Wilson sat in the kitchen to have some tea and organize the household finances. Money was still tight, but manageable. Her retirement covered the basics. What little extra came from selling sweets helped with small luxuries. Most importantly, they had an emergency fund in a tin that grew each week. She was doing the math when she heard noise from the boys' room. She got up to check and found all 3 sitting on Ethan's bed, whispering, "What are you still doing awake?" "Grandma," Noah ran to hug her. "We were talking about an idea Ethan had." "What idea?" Ethan got up and went to his homework desk, pulling out a scribbled notebook. "We were thinking, Grandma. We've learned to make sweets really well, right?" "You sure have. And people love our sweets. They really do. So we thought, what if we started a real business?" Mrs. Wilson sat on the bed, curious. "A real business? How so?" Mason jumped in excitedly. "We could make more sweets, different kinds, and sell them not just to neighbors. We could sell at the market, church events, school meetings. But in an organized way," Noah added, "with a name and everything." Ethan opened the notebook, showing drawings and notes. "We've already thought it all through, Grandma. What sweets to make, how much each costs, where to buy ingredients cheapest." Mrs. Wilson flipped through the notebook, impressed. The kids had made a full business plan, math all correct, even sketches of how to display the sweets. "And what would this business be called?" "We thought of a few," Mason said. "Grandma Margaret's Sweets, 3 Brothers Sweets, Wilson Family Sweets. Which do you like best?" "Wilson Family Sweets," Noah said, "because it includes you too." "And how would we organize it?" "You'd be the supervisor," Ethan explained. "We make the sweets, but you oversee everything and handle the grown-up stuff." "What about the money?" "Half goes to household expenses," Mason said. "The other half we split, a little for each of us and a little for savings." Mrs. Wilson looked at her 3 grandsons, now little entrepreneurs, with pride and admiration. "You've really thought of everything." "We'll only do it if you want," Noah said. "If you think it's too much responsibility, we'll drop the idea." "No, boys, I think it's wonderful, but with some conditions." "What?" "First, school always comes first. If grades slip, we stop." "Agreed," Ethan said. "Second, you still have time to play and be kids. This can't become an obsession." "Agreed too," Mason said. "Third, we do this as a family having fun. If it feels like hard work, we quit." "Agreed," Noah cheered. "Then it's settled. We're partners in Wilson Family Sweets." The 3 jumped on the bed to hug their grandma, thrilled she approved. "When do we start?" Noah asked. "Slowly. Next Saturday, we'll make a special batch and see how it goes. And if it works? If it works, we'll grow bit by bit, but always remembering our priorities." That night, everyone went to bed excited for the future. Mrs. Wilson lay thinking how her grandsons had matured without losing their childlike spirit, responsible yet still joyful. The boys dreamed of chocolate truffles, coconut fudge, and coconut kisses arranged on colorful trays under a sign that read, "Wilson Family Sweets." The following Saturday, the kitchen turned into a small sweets factory. Mrs. Margaret Wilson coordinated the activities, the boys worked as a team, and Mrs. Nancy stopped by to lend a hand and see how things were going. "My goodness, what organization!" she exclaimed when she saw the treats neatly arranged in cups, labeled by type and price. "We made a system," Ethan explained proudly. "Each type of candy has a different cup color." "And we even made business cards," Mason added, showing small pieces of paper with the business name and a drawing of sweets. "Business cards?" Mrs. Nancy laughed. "You really are little entrepreneurs." Noah was finishing packing the last chocolate truffles when he asked, "Grandma, where are we going to sell first? How about starting right here on our street? We'll offer them to the neighbors, see how they react, and then think about expanding." "Good idea," Ethan agreed. They arranged a tray with samples of each type of candy and set out to officially introduce Wilson Family Sweets to the neighborhood. The reception was even better than they expected. Mrs. Betty, 2 houses down, ordered 3 dozen chocolate truffles for her grandson's birthday. Mr. Richard from the corner asked for coconut fudge to take to work. Mrs. Rose placed an order for coconut kisses for the church gathering. "Wow, if this keeps up, we'll have to make candy every day," Mason laughed. "Easy now, boys," Mrs. Margaret said. "We'll grow slowly, with organization." That first afternoon as Wilson Family Sweets, they sold nearly everything they had made, and most importantly, they had a lot of fun doing it. "Grandma, can we do this every week?" Noah asked excitedly. "We'll see how it fits with school, but I think so. And we could make different kinds of candy each week," Mason suggested. "Or take special orders," Ethan added. Mrs. Margaret saw she had 3 little entrepreneurs in her hands, full of ideas and energy. But she also saw 3 children who had found a healthy way to contribute to the family without giving up their childhood. In the following months, Wilson Family Sweets became well known in the neighborhood. It wasn't just sales to neighbors anymore. They started getting orders for birthday parties, school meetings, and church events. Mrs. Margaret took on the role of manager, handling orders, organizing ingredients, and managing finances. The boys took turns in production, always under her supervision. Most importantly, their school grades stayed good, they still had time to play, and the family was closer than ever. One day, 6 months after Mrs. Margaret was discharged from the hospital, a surprise showed up at their door. Dr. Sarah Johnson was there, but not for a routine visit. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm here for a special reason today." "Is something wrong, doctor?" "Quite the opposite. Something very good happened. Do you remember I mentioned I would recommend aid for your family?" "Yes, I do." "Well, a permanent assistance approval came through for the boys. It's a benefit for children under the care of grandparents in vulnerable situations." Mrs. Margaret felt her legs weaken. "What do you mean, doctor?" "It's a monthly financial aid to ensure the children have everything they need: education, food, health care, clothing." "How much?" "It's an amount that will cover all their basic needs. You can use the money from the sweets for other things or even save for the future." The boys, who had been listening from the kitchen, ran into the living room. "Does this mean we don't have to worry about money anymore?" Ethan asked. "It means you can be real kids without any financial worries," Dr. Sarah said with a smile. "And can we still keep making the sweets?" asked Noah. "Of course you can, but now it'll just be for fun, not out of necessity." Mason ran to hug his grandma. "Grandma, now we can save money to buy a bigger house." "Or to travel," said Noah excitedly. "Or for when you grow up and want to go to college," suggested Mrs. Margaret Wilson. That night, the family celebrated with a special dinner. Nothing too expensive or fancy, but made with all the love in the world. And for the first time in years, there was no financial worry hanging over the table. "Grandma, can we ask you something?" said Ethan during dinner. "Of course, my love. Are you happy taking care of us?" The question took Mrs. Margaret by surprise. "Why do you ask that?" "Because we know raising 3 kids alone is hard," said Mason. "We wanted to make sure you don't feel forced. And if you wanted to do other things, like travel, date," added Noah, making everyone laugh. Mrs. Margaret looked at her 3 grandsons and felt her heart overflowing with love. "Boys, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Taking care of you isn't an obligation. It's a privilege. But don't you miss having more time for yourself?" "I have all the time I need, and I have something far more precious. I have you." Ethan got up from his chair and hugged his grandma. "We love you so much too, Grandma, and we promise we'll always take care of you as well." "Like you already have," smiled Mrs. Margaret, remembering the months in the hospital. "That was just the beginning," said Mason. "We'll always be a family that looks out for each other." 2 years had passed since that dramatic day in the hospital. when Mrs. Margaret discovered her grandsons were selling sweets to pay for her treatment. The family's life had completely transformed. Wilson Family Sweets now had a loyal customer base in the neighborhood. They no longer sold out of necessity, but because they enjoyed making them, and because it had become a beloved family tradition. Ethan, now 14, had become the gourmet chocolate truffle expert. Mason, 12, was the master of coconut fudge and peanut candy. Noah, 10, had discovered a talent for decoration and arranged the trays like works of art. Mrs. Margaret, now 72, was in good health and had taken on the role of general manager for the family business, handling orders and administrative tasks. Their home had undergone some renovations, nothing luxurious, but improvements that made it more comfortable and functional. They had a bigger kitchen for making sweets, a small office where Mrs. Margaret managed finances, and most importantly, each boy now had his own room. One Sunday, while they were all in the living room watching TV, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Margaret went to answer it and came face to face with two people she hadn't seen in 3 years, Robert and Jennifer, her son and daughter-in-law. The shock was so great, she stood frozen in the doorway, unable to speak. "Mom," said Robert hesitantly, "can we come in?" Mrs. Margaret looked back and saw her 3 grandsons rising from the couch, their faces filled with utter surprise. "Dad," said Ethan, his voice flat, as if he were looking at a stranger. "Mom?" Mason took a step back, moving closer to his brothers. Noah, who had been only 5 when his parents left, stared at them without recognition. "You can come in," Mrs. Margaret finally said, but her tone was cold. Robert and Jennifer stepped into the living room and stood awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the reception they were getting. "How have you been?" asked Jennifer, trying to smile at her sons. "We've been fine," Ethan replied curtly. "Without you." "Ethan," Robert began. "Robert." "No," the boy interrupted. "You don't get to show up here after 3 years and act like nothing happened." Mrs. Margaret Wilson sat in the armchair, feeling a mix of anger and protectiveness toward her grandchildren. "What do you want here?" "Mom, we know we messed up," said Robert, "but we came to get our kids." "Get?" Noah stepped out from behind his brothers. "Get us for what?" "To take you with us to Canada. We've settled there now. We have a good home, steady jobs." "And why now?" asked Mason. "Why didn't you call in these 3 years?" Jennifer tried to explain. "Kids, it was really hard at first. We couldn't afford to stay in touch, to send money." "But you could afford to forget you had 3 kids here?" said Ethan, with a quiet anger that stunned everyone in the room. "We didn't forget you," said Robert. "We never forgot." "Liar," Noah said simply. "If you didn't forget, why didn't you ever call? Why didn't you even send a birthday card?" The question from a 10-year-old left the parents speechless. Mrs. Margaret stood up from the armchair. "Robert, Jennifer, you want to talk? Then let's talk, but with the truth. Mom, don't call me Mom right now. For 3 years I've been mother and father to these boys. What were you? People who used to live here? You don't understand how hard it was." "Hard?" Mrs. Margaret's voice rose. "You want to know what's hard? Raising 3 kids alone on a minimum wage pension, watching them go without, getting sick in the hospital and finding out they were selling candy on the street to pay for my treatment." Robert and Jennifer exchanged glances, clearly shocked. "What do you mean, selling candy on the street?" Jennifer asked. Ethan stepped forward. "When Grandma got sick, we learned how to make chocolate truffles and went out to sell them so we could afford her medicine." "At 8, 10, and 12 years old," Mason added. "Because there was no one else to help." "And where were you then?" Noah asked. "Building your new life in Canada and pretending we didn't exist?" Robert tried to step closer to his sons, but they backed away. "Kids, we know we messed up, but now we want to make it right. We want to take you to a better life." "Better than this?" Ethan said, gesturing around the room. "Here we have love, care, responsibility. We have a real family." "We are your real family," Jennifer said. "No," Noah said with a firmness beyond his years. "Real family doesn't abandon. Real family doesn't forget. Real family takes care of you." Mason moved closer to his grandma. and held her hand. Grandma is our real family. She never gave up on us. Mrs. Margaret felt tears welling up but kept her composure. Robert, you have the legal right to take these kids. But I have one question. Do you really want them, or are you here out of guilt? What do you mean? Are you here because you miss them and want to be real parents, or because someone told you you should come get your kids? The silence that followed was telling. The truth is, someone in Canada found out you had kids back in Brazil, and it's causing problems for you, Mrs. Margaret said, with the wisdom of someone who's lived a long life. Robert lowered his head. It's not like that, Mum. Don't lie to me, Robert. I've known you for 45 years. Someone found out you left 3 kids behind, and now you're being pressured to do the right thing. Jennifer started crying. It wasn't abandonment. We always meant to come back for them. 3 years later, Ethan said, and only because you were pressured. Do you really think we'd go with you after this? Mason asked. Noah stepped closer to his parents and looked them straight in the eye. Do you even know us? Do you know what colors we like? Do you know what we study in school? Do you know who our friends are? Robert and Jennifer exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Do you know Ethan is the best in his class at math? That Mason plays on the school soccer team? That I learned to play the guitar? Ethan added, do you know we have a candy business that's doing really well? Do you know we've learned to be responsible, to take care of each other, to look after Grandma? Mason finished. Do you know we're happy here? Mrs. Margaret Wilson stood up again. Robert, Jennifer, I'll be very clear with you. For 3 years, you didn't exist to these children. I took care of them when they were sick, helped with homework, comforted them when they had nightmares about where you were. Mum, I'm not done. These kids grew up, matured, became amazing people, and they did it without you. Now you show up wanting to take them to ease your guilt. It's not guilt, Robert said. It's love. Love? Noah laughed bitterly. Love doesn't abandon, love doesn't forget, love doesn't disappear for 3 years. Ethan stepped in front of his brothers, taking on the protective role he'd held for years. Do you really want to know the truth? We don't want to go with you, we want to stay here with Grandma in our home with our lives. But we're your parents, Jennifer said. No, Mason replied. You were our parents. Now you're just 2 people who used to live here. Grandma is the one who takes care of us, who worries about us, who stays up when we're sick, Noah added. Mrs. Margaret looked at her grandchildren with immense pride. They'd become strong, principled people, capable of making hard choices and standing up for what they believed in. Robert, you heard what they said. Now you decide. Will you respect their wishes or force a situation that'll make everyone miserable? Robert and Jennifer exchanged conflicted glances. We have legal rights, Robert finally said. You do, Mrs. Margaret agreed, but legal rights aren't the same as doing what's right. And do you really want kids who don't want to be with you? Ethan asked. Who will be miserable away from the only family they've known? The question hung in the air, heavy and final. The end. And you, what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments which part moved you most and whether you believe the family made the right decision. Your opinion means a lot to us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories that will touch your heart. Thank you so much for being here with us.